We are in Jacob, part 5. It's probably going to be a 10-part by the time we're done. Jacob. We're talking about Jacob. So where we are right now in the study we are doing on Jacob, which is in Genesis 29, we are basically, I have affectionately named this the baby wars. Jacob has just married Leah out of deception and Rachel. And he loves Rachel more than he loves Leah. And we've talked all about how that whole family from Rebecca all the way down through and Laban and all that, they're all just kind of really deceitful. They're all kind of deceitful. It's the best thing I can think of. And when Jacob went and saw Laban for the first time and he recounted the story of how he had tricked Esau out of his birthright and all that, that's when Laban said, you really are my family. That's how he knew that he was really his family. So we've gone through that. We've gone through, I actually want to back up Genesis 29:20. We'll get context for what we're doing. And we'll come out of that. So Genesis 29:20. I'm in the Common English, although there is one spot where I'm going to go to the King James because the Common English translates it wrong. And I will point that stuff out to you. 29:30. That's what I said. 29:20. 29:20. All right. Jacob worked for Rachel for 7 years, but it seemed like a few days because he loved her. Jacob said to Laban, "The time has come, give me my wife so that I may sleep with her." We talked about this. He labored 7 years for her. He thought she was, and she was a very good looking woman, a very fine looking woman. And yet all he wants her for after 7 years is, it's time, I want to lay with her. And yeah, the other stuff, but that's what he asks for. So Laban invited the people to that place and prepared a banquet. However, in the evening, he took his daughter Leah and brought her to Jacob, and he slept with her. Laban had given his servant Zilpah to his daughter Leah as her servant. In the morning, there she was, Leah. Jacob said to Laban, "What have you done to me? Didn't I work for you to have Rachel? Why did you betray me? It's in his blood." Laban said, "Where we live, we don't give the younger woman before the oldest. Complete the celebratory week with this woman." Again, doesn't call them by their name, doesn't call them daughters, he calls them this woman. "Then I will give you this other woman too for your work, if you work for me 7 more years. So that is what Jacob did. He completed the celebratory week with this woman. And then Laban gave him his daughter Rachel as his wife. And Laban had given his servant Bilhah to his daughter Rachel as her servant. And Jacob slept with Rachel, and he loved Rachel more than Leah, and he worked for Laban 7 more years. So we have the 4 women that are coming into play here. We have Leah, we have her servant, Zilpah, and we have Rachel, and we have her servant, Bilhah. So now, Genesis 29:31. They have God playing a role in here of opening wombs and closing wombs. And it very distinctly says, God opened the womb, God closed the womb. And we know from Sarah with Abraham, we know from Rebecca, all that God opens the wombs and makes them happen, so God can just as easily close the womb. So here in 29:31, Genesis 29:31, when the Lord saw that Leah was unloved, he opened her womb, but Rachel was unable to have children. Here is, these women have competed all their lives. back and forth with each other. Rachel has always been the good-looking younger sister that probably everybody had the attention with, and Leah kind of was always in the background. So we keep that in mind. So Leah became pregnant and gave birth to a son. I'm going to go over to my paperwork here. She named him Reuben, and Reuben means, behold, a son. Now, remember in this whole thing that Leah and Rachel are in competition. They're in competition for Jacob. They're in competition for his affection. And so the first thing Leah calls her is Reuben. Behold, a son. Her intention behind calling him behold, a son is a na-na-na-na-na to Rachel. I bore Jacob the heir. He's a boy, and I'm going to rub it in your face so that every time you hear his name, you're going to hear, it's a boy, it's a boy. Behold, it's a son. And she says it's because the Lord saw my harsh treatment, and now my husband will love me. Her contingency is if I give Jacob the right things, he will love me. And then she became pregnant again and gave birth to a son. And she said, the Lord heard that I was unloved, so he gave me this son too, and she named him Simeon, which means heard. God heard my prayer. Another son. Again, she's also praying that Jacob will love her. She's praying to God, have my husband love me, have me be the number one woman in his life. It's all the connotations that are coming in this. So she became pregnant again and gave birth to another son. And here's what I just brought up. This time my husband will embrace me because I've given him 3 sons. So she named him Levi. And Levi means she knows. The she knows is directed at Rachel. Rachel's still barren. Leah has jabbed her 3 times with the names of these kids. Look, it's a boy. Oh, God's heard my voice, and now you know who's the best here. I've delivered 3 boys to my son, to my husband, Jacob. Then she becomes pregnant again, and she says, this time I will praise the Lord. So she named him Judah, which means praised. So she has asked God, give me boys so Jacob will love me. And Rachel and Leah are all both tied up in goods, worldly things. If I get this, I will love you. If you give me this, I will love you. So therefore, if I give you, you will love me. Jacob is still hung up on, this is a good-looking woman, Rachel. She is a fine-looking woman. He still loves her best. He's the one he works 14 years for now.
Sure, I was sleeping with Rachel.
And he was, well, yeah, he's sleeping with both of them, but, you know, he's not kicking her out of bed. So the interesting thing here now is out of Judah comes Jesus, out of the line of Judah. And just a little out of praise comes God, Judah, out of praise. So now in Genesis 30, when Rachel, now we're into Rachel, when Rachel realized that she could bear Jacob no children, Rachel becomes jealous of her sister and says to Jacob, give me children. If you don't, I may as well be dead. Gimme, gimme, gimme. Gimme. Gimme children. I put here, Rachel is a spoiled little brat. She is. She's gotten everything. Except kids. So Jacob was angry at Rachel and said, do you think I'm God? God alone has kept you from giving birth. She said, Rachel, Here's my servant Bilhah. Bilhah means troubled. She's been called troubled all her life, Bilhah. Now here's where these things change. Sleep with her, and she will give birth for me. Because of her, I will also have children. Wrong translation. The King James for that 30 verse 3. And she said, behold my maid Bilhah, go unto her, and she shall bear up on my knees, that I may also have children by her. We're all adults in here. The tradition was the woman would sit on, literally lay or be on the wife as the husband was making love to the slave and conceiving. And also, she gave him Bilhah, which means she was a concubine also. There's primary wives and concubines. And then in birthing, the woman would literally, they had birthing chairs back then, and they'd sit on the birthing chair. The woman would sit on the wife and birth. It was all symbolic on how this happened. And that child has just as much a birthright through Rachel as if she bore it herself. That's tradition. Now, if you think that is bizarre by our standards, today, the Amish, because they are so inbred, are actually bringing in outside men to have sex with the wives and have children from that. It's the same situation. The husband's right there as this is going on, and that is how they're getting their gene pool expanded again from what it was. So even today, these practices are taking place, and they're weird by our normal standards, but it's something that happens. So when we're talking about these women, when we're talking about the slaves or that are bearing Rachel's and Leah's children, it's just as if Rachel and Leah were bearing those children, as far as the law is concerned, as far as everything's concerned. And this is what it says here. So Rachel gave her servant Bilhah to Jacob his wife, and he slept with her. Bilhah became pregnant and gave birth to a son for Jacob. Rachel says, God has judged me in my favor, heard my voice, and gave me a son. So she named him Dan. Dan means God has judged, and he has vindicted me. Vindicated, that's what I said. Vindicated. Yeah, totally different thing. Yes. Vindicated me. So Rachel is going, ha-ha, I have my boy. But what Rachel's kind of missing here is Leah is the first wife. Leah has a son who is the heir. But Rachel's going, I've got a boy. I've been vindicated. No, so it's Rachel, it's all about me. It's all about me. It's all about me. So then Rachel's servant Bilhah became pregnant again and gave birth to a second son for Jacob. Rachel says, I've competed fiercely with my sister, and now I've won. So she named him Naphtali. Wrestling. I have prevailed. So I have prevailed. It's as a sign that she's winning this competition. But now as I see it, the score is Leah 4. Leah 4 out of her, Leah 2 out of her servant. And Rachel goes, I'm winning this. I got this. I got this. I'm winning this.
It's so complicated.
It is, but when we understand, like we have learned through this thing, when you understand the family, when you understand how they're raised, when you understand this whole thing, it all makes perfect sense. And that scripture I read last week about in Proverbs about not, oh no, it was actually one of the laws. Don't marry your wife's sister. Don't marry your wife's sister. It became a law. Don't do it. And I'm sure this is one of the very reasons why that happened. So what we have here is Leah's 4 through her own womb, Rachel's 2 through her maid. And Rachel says she's winning. So in Genesis 30, verse 9, when Leah realized that she stopped bearing children, she took her servant, Zilpah. Zilpah means trickling, like water trickles, things trickle. Not tricking, like I've tricked you, but trickling. Some of these names mean things and some of them don't apply. So she gave her to Jacob, his wife. And Leah's servant Zilpah gave birth to a son for Jacob. And Leah says, "What good luck." So she named him Gad, which means troop. I am bearing a troop of boys, na-na-na-na-na-na. Look at this. I got a troop going here. She's up to 5 boys now. Leah's servant Zilpah gave birth to a second son for Jacob, and Leah said, "I'm happy now because women call me happy." So she named him Asher, which means happy. Okay, Genesis 30, 14. This is interesting. Just a little, how they kind of do a little aside here. During the wheat harvest, Reuben, they figure Reuben's probably 5, 6 years old, and he's just out in the field wandering around. He found some erotic herbs. I should say it's mandrake. It's the plant that he found. They call it love tomatoes. Love fruit, which we call tomatoes, but this is actually a mandrake. It's a root that grows in the ground. And it was used in those times, ground up and used as a painkiller, as an aphrodisiac also, but as a painkiller. It was used as an aphrodisiac. It was used mixed with a tincture and boiled with some other plant, I can't remember, was used for demons, crazy people. It would calm crazy people. So it was the Lamictal of the old days. So he's out and he finds these erotic herbs in the field and he brought them to Leah. And Rachel says, "Give me your son's erotic herbs." Rachel is always give me, give me, give me. Leah said, "It's not enough that you've taken my husband. Now you want to take my son's erotic herbs too?" Rachel says, "For your son's erotic herbs, Jacob may sleep with you tonight." First question, I think he's kind of been sleeping with her all along. But the second thing here is, Rachel probably wanted those erotic herbs to give to Jacob so that Jacob and her would have a good time. And so she says, "Well, all right, you sleep with him tonight and basically I'll get him tomorrow night." So when Jacob comes back from the field in the evening, Leah went out to meet him and said, "You must sleep with me because I paid for you with my son's erotic herbs." If you had just come in on that conversation and not known anything else, that would be, "What do you mean your son's, my 8-year-old son's erotic herbs?" So he slept with her that night. Jacob, who's kind of this deceiving, conniving guy, stuck between these two women, and the women are basically ruling his life. You're with me tonight, you're with her tonight. You're over here tonight, you're over there tonight. So, here's what happens. God responded to Leah, and she became pregnant and gave birth to a 5th son for Jacob. Leah says, "God gave me what I paid for. I paid for this child by giving Rachel the roots I bought this night with Jacob, and out of that came a son. What I deserve for giving my servant to and for giving my servant to her husband. So she named him Issachar, which means there's recompense. I've been given recompense is compensation or reward given for loss or harm suffered or an effort made. So where we use it is like substantial damages were paid in recompense. So Leah feels that she's been damaged, and now God has given her another child. Now Leah becomes pregnant again and gives birth to a sixth son for Jacob. And she said, God has given me a wonderful gift. Now my husband will honor me since I've brought him 6 sons. Fifth son, she said, her last boy, she said, now he'll love me. This one, he says, now he'll honor me. So she named him Zebulun, which means exalted. This boy, I will be exalted because of this boy that I've given to Jacob. And here's this little afterthought, ladies. After this, she gave birth to a daughter and named her Dinah. Boom. That's the girl. Now, which means judgment, actually. Dinah means judgment. So now, after all of this, in 22, God remembers Rachel. Now, Rachel this whole time is begging God for children. Takes it into her own hands. They both do this. Take it into their own hands. Go with my servant. Same thing happened with Abraham and Sarah. God promised me a child. God said I would have a child. So I'm going to take it in my own hands, literally in my own hands, and you're going to go into my maidservant, and we're going to have this child because I don't see any other way it's going to happen. I don't trust God that what God says is going to happen is going to happen. So it's this is just showing that this is a normal thing for that time period. His grandfather did it, so he did it. It's just something that carries through. So God remembers Rachel in 22 and responded to her and said, let her conceive. She became pregnant and gave birth to a son and said, God has taken away all my shame. So she named him Joseph, which means Jehovah has added, saying to herself, may the Lord give me another son. Not happy, not content. So the score we have here right now is, help me out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 for Leah, and 1, 2, 3, 4 through Rachel.
Well, 3 because
3. Well, yeah, I mean counting the slaves also, the women.
Yeah, you haven't gotten to the
Okay.
son, so it's
No, yeah, Joseph. So then, now we have to go to Genesis 35:16 for the last son. Now, also in here, Jacob loved Joseph more than any of the other boys because Jacob loved Rachel the most, and Joseph was the first boy born to Rachel. After all this time, he finally gets the boy through Rachel. And what's interesting when we get to Joseph, who does the lineage pass through? I mean, the blessing. Through Joseph. Who saves the world? Joseph. In Egypt. Literally, we had a talk on that. Who saved the known world at the time? Joseph saved the known world. So out of Joseph, and then through I'm getting way ahead of myself. The 2 boys that Joseph had that he laid hands on, and they still passed it down. Jacob passed down. There we go. That's why I have you here. Okay, in Genesis 35. Now we're going to get to this, why Rachel died. We're going to get to that point, but this is where she's dying. In Genesis 35:16, they left Bethel, and when there was still some distance from Ephrath, Rachel went into hard labor. During her difficult labor, the midwife said to her, "Don't be afraid, you have another son." As her life, this Genesis 35:16. As her life faded away, just before she died, she named him Benoni. She named him son of my sorrow. Jacob was not going to go living with somebody called son of my sorrow, and he changes the name. It went from Ben-on-I to Benjamin, Ben-Hanai to Benjamin. So it was close enough, but that means son of the right hand. Rachel died and was buried near the road to spoiler alert. Rachel dies and buried near the road at Ephrath, that is Bethlehem. And I didn't want to get that far ahead, but we had to get the other kid out of here. So we see that the names of what they call the children was, we talked about the names that people were called before. Why Jacob's called Jacob? Because he's a tripper, he's a deceiver. Why Rebecca was called Rebecca? Because she's a snare. All these things. And it follows through with this. So as they name these children, you can see the little jabs that went on to the other wife. Leah's making the jabs at Rachel. Rachel's making the jabs back at Leah. So that's what these tribes of Israel were born out of. And the other important thing that we learned in there was that the maid giving birth was exactly as if the woman who gave the maid was giving birth. Whoever that, let me back that up. Because would be how it worked. Whoever that maid was conceived on and birthed on became as if that woman bore that child. We have surrogate mothers in our society now. It's just not, the donor isn't done live as opposed to it's done turkey baster. So that's where we're going to leave that now. We've got those women and what's going on there. And then we're going to get further in now back to Jacob. We're going to focus more on Jacob now because this was pretty much the women moving Jacob around and the sons being born. And how he and Laban are still trying to deceive each other. And it's really, really interesting. And Jacob says he wants to get paid this way. And then Laban goes and takes all these other things in the other direction. I don't want to give it away, but it's his sheep and his goats and that. So that's going to be end on that. Any questions or concerns or anything else on how people